Welcome to Homestead Reptile. We're going to be looking over structural traits. We're going to look at the wild type crested gecko. So when we look at our example of a wild type crested gecko, they have pretty much no crests. They have a narrow neck and they have a narrow dorsal and they have a longer nose. So these are characteristics that wouldn't be desirable in breeding. So here's my girl. We can see dorsal, neck, crown. So she has a decent head. Her dorsal is decent. It's not the worst. It's not the best. So I'm giving her a B. It's not concaved. Her crest could be a lot bigger. And what makes a crown a crown? So a crown is a gecko with a huge head crests. We're looking at those crests, people. Those big, chunky crests. Here's an example of a baby that's actually starting to develop some good crest structure. So I'll have to see as this one ages out. Now, this is my confirmed big crest male. So he's not fully grown, and those crests are just, I'm assuming I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, they're going to get bigger. But I'm pretty happy with the size they are. They're nice, they're big, they're plump. He also has a good back, and he has a good neck. So good dorsal, good neck. It's not concave, and it's relatively wide. This is an example of an animal with a concave neck. You can see where it comes into a little divot. It looks pinched. You can see those crests on that head. They're small, but they also point up. So if you have a gecko with this pinched neck or concave neck, there's nothing medically wrong with it, but it will point those crests upward, and it's not a desirable trait. Another non-desirable trait are longer noses. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not desirable. He also has a narrow dorsal. So you can see it's not as wide as most people would like. So this animal, structure-wise, he gets an F. Oh, let's be kind to him. Let's give him a D. Structure-wise, he's not the best. He's almost very closely structure-wise to that wild-type gecko we saw in the first photo. But he has poor structure. Now, let's look at this lovely AI art of a short-nosed gecko pug. So I was playing around with the AI, and it's like, what does a gecko with a short face look like? And this is what it gave me. So you can go to extreme in having an animal, searching out for the animal with the best desirable traits. Most people love short-faced animals, brachycephalic animals, and that's what I've seen the trend with geckos lately. They want a bigger head, shorter nose, big eyes, and what does that turn into? It turns into a brachycephalic type gecko. So there could be controversy, some medical conditions that could happen with that. So it's just something to be aware with. Maybe you don't want the shortest face gecko, but what people like, they want that big diamond-shaped head, and it is beautiful. It is cute. I've seen some really good-looking ones. Big diamond-shaped head, big crests, short nose. It really makes the head look bigger. It's not actually bigger, it just makes it look bigger having a shorter nose. And you can see he has a relatively long nose. And again, that's not a desirable trait. So trait-wise, this guy is not desirable at all, trait-wise, for the physical structure of the animal. But don't just look at the heads, people. You really want to check out that dorsal and the neck, because that neck, that is what can break or save structure. So if you have a big floppy-headed gecko with like an amazing crown, and if he has that super concave neck, those crests are going to point upward, and it's just going to make his head look small. It's going to make the crest all jagged and all over the place, and it's going to make the animal look bad. So you really want to make sure you have a gecko with a good flat neck. And you want to have a gecko with a good big dorsal. So it's not all about the head, people. Don't just look at the head, look at the gecko as a whole. So you can see here that concave neck and those spikes pointing up. Now this girl, she has a good dorsal and she has a pretty good neck. And this is still a baby, so we'll have to let them grow in. But if they have a concave neck, they're hatched out with a concave neck. So that's something you can pick out right away in your group of crested geckos. Head structure has to grow in, but you'll know if your gecko is going to have how big the dorsal is, it's just going to be how big it is. How big that neck is, it's going to be how big it is. So if this girl had a concave neck, then I would know I didn't want that one. and I would have picked out another gecko. But that's something to look for immediately in your hatchlings because head structure grows. And this is an example right here of a baby with poor head structure. So this baby came out of my group, and his brother has much better head structure. And you can see that concave on this guy. So that concave neck, small dorsal. But he has, for a Dalmatian, he has some decent structure, and he has some big pointed crests. But you can see those pointed crests, they're pointing upward. You can see the skin, it's pointing upward. It's pulling up. So again, that makes the gecko look like its head's a lot smaller than it is. He has a good head. Now, my girl right here, you can see her. That head, not the best. Not a very good head. Could look a lot better. But what she has, and I love, is a nice neck and a nice big dorsal. Now, she would be perfect to pair with a gecko with a big head who was lacking in dorsal or lacking in neck. And here we have my male right here again, fired up, and you can see that dorsal and the neck, they're very small. And that neck is concave. And again, here we have her. Look at that nice dorsal. So don't just look, and this is one of her babies that has a very good head for the size it is, and a nice dorsal. So this dorsal is very decent. That neck is a little narrow, but it's not concaved. So I'll have to see if that might get a little bigger. So they can get a little bit bigger with age, but it's not going to get much bigger than it is, and it's not concave. So I like this one. This is one of my holdbacks because that structure is decent and the color is good. And we have this guy, so that dorsal is big. You can see it's wide. You can see the head structure. You can see it's a little bit of a wider head. Still a developing animal, but you can tell this animal doesn't have a concave neck. It's nice, it's wide, so this is decent structure, especially for a lily white. That head might get a little bit bigger, but leave a like.